Many of us fail to consider what is a fulfilled life.
Michael Leachin, no better person that embodies vision, persistence, perseverance, and building with a purpose.
One of Canada's most successful investors, Michael Leachin.
But there's very rarely people that actually turn that adversity into an advantage. And you seem to have done that. You go upstream, you do things that the others are literally afraid to do.
A friend of mine mentioned you cannot get an opportunity unless there is a crisis. That person practiced what we call the 3 Ps. That person predicted, took a view of the future, planned for his or her prediction, and thirdly, persevered with the plans. Most people, when they're making a purchase, they look for, in colloquial terms, pretty. I look for ugly. I observe the converse of that is, if there's no difference between perception and reality, in other words, if everybody knows the same thing, you can't create any wealth. You can't create wealth when things are already efficient.
Right.
He's been a pioneer in terms of being that Canadian that steps forward, that changes the game.
Welcome to the ChallengerX podcast. What does it take to go from having almost nothing to building a fortune that changes industries, countries, and even generations? Today's guest is living proof that extraordinary success isn't determined by where you start, but by how you think. Michael Leachin's story is one of the greatest entrepreneurial journeys of our time. Raised by a single mother who herself was an orphan, he came to Canada with limited financial means, but limitless ambition. He entered one of the most competitive industries, financial services, and through vision, discipline, and an unwavering belief in long-term investing, built AIC Limited into one of Canada's most successful investment management firms before its landmark acquisition by Manulife Financial. His success earned him a place on the Forbes World's Billionaires list, while his business leadership has been recognized by Forbes, Fortune, and Time. Through Portland Holdings, he continues to build and invest across financial services, healthcare, infrastructure, tourism, and clean energy, creating businesses that have generated billions of dollars in value. But what has always fascinated me about Michael isn't simply his wealth. It's his willingness to make bold, long-term bets before the rest of the world sees the opportunity. Today, he's investing in advanced nuclear technology, both for its potential to revolutionize cancer treatment and to provide the energy infrastructure needed to power the next generation of AI. His career is a masterclass in conviction, patience, and thinking in decades instead of quarters. So let's go.
Michael Leachin, I am honored to have you on the ChallengerX podcast. No better person that embodies vision, persistence, perseverance, and building with a purpose, right? And so it's my honor to have you. And I know you've got a busy schedule, so we're going to jump right into it. You are highly regarded as a visionary and entrepreneur with a philosophy of doing well by doing good. Thank you for being on the podcast.
My pleasure. I'm excited to be here.
Amazing. What a great story you have. There's so many layers to it. This podcast is all about inspiring the next generation of leaders, entrepreneurs, those who are facing adversity but have a vision. And you have a unique insight into how you can persevere despite the odds. I would love to go back to your early years, right? I always like starting there. And like, what experiences most shaped the person you became?
Thank you very much, Jerome. I'm the eldest of 9 kids. So I've always had a protective spirit towards my siblings. Not like siblings today; they're more competitive. I felt always a nurturing spirit towards my siblings. But my mother was most influential in my life because when she had me, she was 18 years old. And she is an orphan. And when she had me, when she was pregnant, she lost her job because she got pregnant.
Wow.
She was like a pariah.
Hmm.
And her and I were adopted by the helpers of the local supermarket for the first 6 months of my life. She's a very acquisitive, ambitious, high principled person. She led by example, and she expected much of me.
Hmm.
And because I respected her so much and I loved her so much, I just followed her example and made sure I lived the expectations she had of me.
Hmm.
So she was most influential and she led by example. So I had guidance, great guidance. So I was blessed to have been born to that lady.
What are some unique things that she imparted in you over the years that really clearly have stuck with you your entire life?
Confidence. She was 4 feet 11,
Wow.
but a dynamite. She felt she could do anything, be anybody, and she just knew that she was going to be a very successful person. So she instilled that confidence in me that notwithstanding where we're coming from, that doesn't define where we're going.
Wow. So, needless to say, you're starting out in very humble circumstances. A powerful, mom to guide you. Walk me through the next phase, how you end up in Canada and your journey in the Canadian.
Well, on completion of high school, I got a job. I wanted to leave Jamaica to explore somewhere else other than Jamaica. So I worked for 1 year. My job was that of within the year, I had 2 jobs. The first one was I got a job on a cruise ship as a bellboy. So my job was to bring to the rooms whenever they call for room service.
Right.
I lasted there for 3 months. Then I got a job as a lab chemist at the local bauxite company. So I worked there for 9 months, and at the end of 9 months, I saved $2,000 needed to get into university and get through my first year. So I said, I'm going to make applications for engineering school, and the first school that accepts me, I'm going. If no school accepts me, I'm going to take my $2,000 and buy a Triumph TR7, which is a sports car, right? So one or the other.
Two very good options.
Exactly. So at the end, I fortunately got accepted to McMaster to do engineering. So I came to Canada, did engineering, and at the end of my first year, I did not know where I was going to get the funding for second year. So I got a job on campus in the landscaping department. And by July the 15th, I'd only saved $600. I needed $2,000. So there was no way I was going to save another $1,400 by the end of August. So I got desperate, and I did what every single desperate student would do. I wrote to the Prime Minister of Jamaica.
Wow.
And I said, Prime Minister, look, I've been writing to your Services Commission, which is the agency of government that disperses scholarships and bursaries. And no one has responded. Prime Minister, I notice that you send every year an emissary of recruiters to recruit the graduates, engineering graduates. Sir, I'm a starving student. You cannot harvest unless you sow.
Wow.
That's the letter I wrote to the Prime Minister. Middle of July. Middle of August, I got a letter from the Prime Minister's office. Next time you come to Jamaica, come and see me. So I took $400 of the $600.
Wow.
Went to Jamaica, bought a ticket, a return ticket, because I had to get funding. There was no way I'm going to leave without getting funding. So I went to Jamaica. I didn't meet the Prime Minister. I met his permanent secretary. And I had reasonable marks. So they gave me a scholarship of $5,000 per year for the next 3 years. So I only needed 2. So I had 3,000 extra that I could have sent to my family at home to help. So that was how I got through university. The point is, when you are in a jam, you have to look for creative solutions.
Right.
You don't look for solutions that are everyday and a normal person would do. Because if the Prime Minister receiving a letter like that, and how I wrote the letter, Prime Minister, you cannot harvest unless you sow. So that would have created an impression, and hence being here today.
What a great story about just really having your back against the wall and thinking on your feet. I can see the lessons of your mom already taking shape at an early age. That, would you say that was your first real obstacle, paying for the tuition?
That was, well, throughout my life, I've always felt that I had to swim upstream.
Cool.
Because my mother, my family, was very ambitious. And we were starting from scratch. So I always felt I had to work harder, I had to be smarter, I had to just do what it takes to get through. Because that's the example I saw from my parents. So swimming upstream is natural for me.
Is normal. It's incredible because we speak to a lot of like the younger generation where, everyone's dealt with some form of adversity and, challenges. No one's really, got it all together. But there's very rarely people that actually turn that adversity into an advantage. And you seem to have done that. And you've done it your whole career. You go upstream, you do things that the others are literally afraid to do. It's very inspiring, and it's probably something that we need more of. Talk to me about...
Before we move on from that subject, when I was very, very young, 23, a friend of mine mentioned to me, Mike, you cannot get an opportunity unless there is a crisis.
Wow.
The Chinese definition of the word crisis has 2 component parts: danger plus opportunity. When there's a crisis, how do you feel, Jerome? You feel awful. You're paralyzed because you're focusing on the first component, the danger component. But there's a second component, the opportunity component. So when there's a crisis, what you have to do, take a deep breath, calm yourself down, because it's instinctive that you're going to focus on the danger and be paralyzed. So you have to calm yourself down and ask yourself the question, where are the opportunities?
Wow.
Where are the opportunities? And just focus on that.
Yeah, very, very valuable. Having two kids myself, like it's very easy to focus on the problem, right? And I think just having that mindset and training it as a discipline, I think is so valuable for you. You then got into the wealth management industry, very interesting transition there. How did that happen?
Well, I didn't get into it by design. I got into it by default. I came back to Canada, having worked for the Jamaican government for 2 years to repay my funding. When I got back to Canada, I couldn't get a job as an engineer. So I got a job as a bouncer.
You have the build for it.
Got a job as a bouncer at the local student pub on campus.
Right.
So one night I was there bouncing, and this friend of mine came and said, Mike, tonight I made $200. I was making $2.50 per hour. So I said, what? You made $200 tonight? It would take me 80 hours of being a bouncer to make $200. Next night he came and said, Mike, tonight I made $400. I said, 160 hours of bouncing? Whatever he's doing, I'm going to check it out. So I went down and I went to the local investors group office in Hamilton. He was selling mutual funds. I didn't know what a mutual fund was. Well, I went anyway. And I did the psychological test. And I failed it. But they must have been desperate for salespeople.
Sales reps.
So they hired me anyway.
Yeah.
And that was my transition to the financial services industry and specifically selling mutual funds.
Wow. What gave you the courage to go into a brand new industry?
I had no choice. I had no choice. He made $200 one night to take me 80 hours to make $200. He made $400 the next night to take me 160 hours. So I thought, it's ambition. He can do so well. Whatever he's doing, I'm going to try it. So that gave me that was the impetus.
The stories of your starting in the financial services is legendary. The door-to-door selling. Walk us through that, because there's I find that the young generation has a real resistance to do the hard work early on. The door-to-door sales, the sales calls, the pushing, pushing past the regular limits just to get into that next level. Walk me through what that experience was like.
So I went to training school. This was back in May of 1977. So they sent me to training school for 5 days. Came back home on a Friday, and I did not know where I was going to get prospects from. I had to go into work, first on a job after training school on Monday, with a list of people to see. I didn't have anyone, because as a student, as an immigrant, you know no one with money. So my mom was coming to Canada to visit with me. And so I went to pick her up. The flight was late by 2 hours. This was now May of 90. It was May, spring. So I thought, what am I going to do for the next 2 hours? Because I'm now stressed. Where am I going to get people to see? I'm going into work on Monday, tomorrow. So I said, okay, let me just go and drive around the neighborhood and collect my thoughts. So as I was driving, I saw people tending to their gardens. I said, Mike, there they are. There are your prospects. So the next person you see, Mike, you're going to grit your teeth, close your eyes, put the car in park, get out of the car, and you're in front of a real life prospect. You have to say something.
Wow.
So I said exactly what I did. So the next person I saw, I did exactly that. And I said, ma'am, I'm in the neighborhood seeing members of this community. And I'm showing them how they can convert their cash flow into assets over time. When it would be good to see you? Early next week or later in the week? Out of 6 approaches, I got 5 appointments.
Wow.
When I saw them, the first month, I made $10,000. First month. Remember, I'm used to making $2.50.
That's right.
So what did I do? I reinvested in myself. I went out, I was 26. I went out and I bought a Mercedes Benz, but not the entry level one. The top of the line, 450 SEL.
Right.
I bought a Mercedes Benz, and that was my calling card. So now when I drive up, you see this tall black guy driving up in a Mercedes, young. You're saying, this is dissonant. And he's a financial advisor, right? So it's dissonant. So the curiosity was there. Whatever he's doing, I want to hear what he has to say. And that was, I improved the odds in terms of cold calling because I created more dissonance.
Yes.
I was more differentiated. So that's how I improved the odds, cold calling. Then I said, okay, I became really good at it. I'm not going to go to an area where wealthy people are because I was cold calling arbitrarily. And I got smart. I'm going to go down to Tilsonburg, which is where the tobacco farmers are. I lived in Fruitland near Stony Creek. So every day I'll drive 100 miles there, back to cold call the farmers. Okay? And I'll drive up these long driveways. Go get out of the car. Hello, I'm Michael Leachin. I'm working for company X. And this is what I do. So initially, they all told me, my advisor is the local accounting firm. It was A.W. Judd at the time. I said, why don't I go and see Mr. Judd? So I went down there and I saw Mr. Judd. And Mr. Judd said, I told Mr. Judd what it is I'm doing. And he said, you know, I just came back from an accounting conference in Toronto. And this is the product that you're describing is the exact product that they say we should be recommending to our clients, the farmers.
Wow.
Thank you, sir. So next, everybody I saw thereafter, when I said, my accountant is Mr. A.W. Judd, I said, please call him.
Wow.
So that's, you know, when you're in the field, things happen, right? But you have to get out of the office and do. If you stay in the office, nothing happens.
Right. So the importance of taking action and not overthinking it. I want to talk about adversity because you're trying to break into financial services. You're clearly a disruptive force. You know, I'm sure you ran into some naysayers, some disruption. How did you overcome that? Because you were clearly not the typical prototype of a wealth management advisor.
So, again, you know, in every business, for every professional, business or professional, there's 3 things we have to do really well. Number 1, every day we should be thinking about how am I making sure I'm differentiated in the marketplace. You have to think about it every day. Because there are forces to make you undifferentiated.
Right. Wow.
Secondly, every day, as a professional, as a business, one has to think about how I'm making sure that I'm building on my reputation. And thirdly, every day, we have to think about how am I making sure that our behavior today is relevant to customers. Those are the 3 things we have to think about every day and make sure it's topical. Because once we do that, we'll be relevant and we'll build the best professional career and the best business. So with that in mind, back then, whenever I went to a customer's home, just before ringing the bell, I'd ask myself, Mike, what's the highest value add you can give to this family here tonight, sitting around their kitchen table? What's that one thing that if you can achieve, it will transform their lives? And the answer was, Mike, make them wealthy. That's the highest value a financial advisor can give to his or her client.
Right.
Make them wealthy. Don't beat around the bush and talk about estate planning, financial planning, tax planning. Make them wealthy. Because to become wealthy, all of those, you have to do all of those things. But if you focus on the subsidiary things that, like estate planning, financial planning, you may forget about making them wealthy. But if you focus on wealthy, making them wealthy, implicitly you do all of the subsidiary things.
Right.
So the question I had for myself was, Mike, this was back in late 70s. Mike, is there a formula that if you practice consistently, the outcome is wealth? Is there such a formula? Because if there is such a formula, I want to know what that formula is, and that is what I'm going to be advocating, the formula, the principles. And then make sure the execution is in keeping with the principles.
Right. Right.
So that was my code to break as a young man. Is there a formula that if you practice consistently, the outcome is wealth? So I'm an engineer. And as an engineer, I'm a scientist. And as a scientist, there's a scientific methodology that every scientist goes through when they're trying to solve for whatever. Firstly, they observe, they look through their microscope. Secondly, they create a hypothesis from their observation. Thirdly, they stress test the hypothesis under different conditions, add heat, more heat, less heat, pressure, etc. They stress test the hypothesis. If the hypothesis holds true, they codify it, and then they hardwire it to become theory. So that's the engineering or scientific process. So I said, I'm going to take that process and apply it to wealth creation. So I observed wealthy people all over the world, and I created a hypothesis, and I stress tested it, and then I codified it. And to me, it's no theory. I've lived it. So what did I what did I codify? We call it the 5 laws of wealth creation. Sir, just think about a wealthy person.
Sure.
Don't tell me who. Jerome, I'm going to tell you the 5 things that person did to become wealthy. Number 1, that person owned a few, not too many, high-quality businesses.
That's right.
That person really understands those few businesses. Yes or no?
Yes. Yeah.
Number 2. Number 3, that person has used other people's money prudently to have created wealth. Fourthly, that person has made sure those few businesses that he or she understands are in strong long-term growth industries. And fifthly, sir, I'm sure that person you're thinking of has simply held those few businesses for the long run.
Yeah.
5 out of 5?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. In addition to that, sir, that person practiced what we call the 3 Ps. That person predicted, took a view of the future, planned for his or her prediction, and thirdly, persevered with the plan. Yes or no?
Yes.
So 5 plus 3, 8 out of 8.
Wow. That is a masterclass, and so so needed in a world where there's so much noise about chasing fads and making investments without really understanding them. Your principles have withstood the test of time, and it's really important to remind the next generation, the current generation, on how wealth is created. Right.
The wealthy invest differently. At Mandeville, we understand this and are committed to making clients wealthy by providing access to quality investment opportunities typically reserved for the world's most affluent investors and institutions. That does not happen by chance. It requires discipline, long-term thinking, access to quality investment opportunities, and a sound investment framework. The Mandeville difference is inspired by the principles and behaviors of some of the world's most successful wealth creators. These investor role models think differently. They focus on ownership. They understand what they own. They invest in long-term growth industries. And they remain disciplined and committed over time. Connect with a Mandeville advisor today to learn how a framework-driven approach can help position your wealth for the future. Visit www.mandevilleinc.com/difference.
So you've got you've left an enormous mark on the financial services landscape in Canada, right? You built an incredible mutual fund company, and then you ultimately sold it. Would love to get an inside lens into how you went from being a financial advisor to being a business builder to ultimately building one of Canada's largest mutual fund companies. So,
Well, you start off with a framework, the 5 laws. I started off with the 5 laws. And when I sat with my prospects, I would go through the 5 laws with them. And but before that, I had to have a vehicle. I had to have had a vehicle. So I bought a small mutual fund company with $800,000 in assets under management.
Wow.
And it was like your typical it had one mutual fund, which was like your typical mutual fund, diversified. Well, I thought wealth is not created by being diversified. Wealth is created by focusing. So I'm going to start a fund that because I put into practice those principles I just exposed, the 5 laws, into my own situation. So I bought 2 companies, Mackenzie Financial Corporation, a mutual fund management company, and Berkshire Hathaway. This is in October of 1983. I had borrowed $500,000 to invest in Mackenzie. The $500,000 4 years later became $3.5 million. So when I looked at my portfolio, I thought, this portfolio really is proof perfect as to the principle, because all I did was apply the 5 laws to my portfolio.
Right.
The principles, the framework guided me as to what I should invest in. So I thought, there's no mutual fund management company that can compete with this. So I'm going to start a mutual fund that is dedicated to those 5 laws and the 3 Ps. So I started I immediately bought a mutual fund company with $800,000, retrofitted the portfolio. So I bought up shares of Mackenzie, AGF, Investors Group, Trimark, which is now Invesco, Scepter Investment Council, we bought TD Bank also, and shares of Berkshire Hathaway, etc. So that mutual fund was the beginning.
Why?
800,000 back in 1987. 12 years later, 15 billion. It was differentiated because I don't know of another mutual fund in the world that has only 15 companies. And the majority of them was in one industry. Right? But that's how wealth is created. So our mutual fund was not your typical mutual fund. It was just an accumulation vehicle for wealth management companies, which was going to be the future of how of more wealth management was going to be in demand, driven by demographics, the baby boomers.
Wow, what a great story. Masterclass in investing with conviction, staying the course, right? And so great success. And then how does that turn into now you forming Portland, and you're clearly building, investments in other facets. You were courageous enough to go into Jamaica during the financial crisis and help rescue the National Bank. I would love to hear some of that journey to the next phase.
So I'm a student of wealth creation, and I try to translate behavior into principles. You can't teach behavior, you can teach principles. So what I do, I'll observe, and I observe successful people, their behavior, and translate their behavior into principles that you can teach and you can replicate.
Right.
I believe one of the first principle is you want to be successful at any endeavor, any. There's a 3-step formula to do it. Number 1, identify a role model. Who before me, who is pursuing, who is eminent in this particular endeavor, whether it's, you want to be the best lawyer, doctor, business person, student, I believe this formula will always work. Identify a role model. Get the recipe. Role model, how did you do it? And thirdly, don't put your thumbprint on it. Execute the recipe faithfully. So, there's an observation. So, role model recipe, do the same. Is a formula, the formula that I've always advocated if you want to be successful at any endeavor. So, transitioning now to outside of the Canadian business environment, there's another framework that I coined. I observed wealth is created when 3 preconditions are present. Number 1, there must be a difference between perception and reality. The converse of that is, if there's no difference between perception and reality, in other words, if everybody knows the same thing, you can't create any wealth. So there must be, first precondition, there must be a difference between perception and reality. The second precondition to create wealth, enormous wealth, is that there must be inefficiencies. You can't create wealth when things are already efficient.
Right.
And thirdly, there must be a lack of capital, especially equity capital. And so when those 3 preconditions are present, bingo, there's a potential to create enormous wealth. So, armed with those 3 preconditions, I looked at the National Commercial Bank, which was taken over by the government. Well, firstly, the first precondition is your perception reality gap towards Jamaica as an investment destination. Of course, nobody sees Jamaica as really, they see it as a tourist destination, not a wealth-creating destination.
Right.
So there's a difference between perception and reality. But Scotiabank has been in Jamaica since 1889.
Wow.
And Scotia International, all the countries except for Canada, Scotia International, Jamaica, one of 49 countries, approximately. So perception versus reality. Scotia knew the profitability of Jamaica. The masses didn't. Tick number 1. Secondly, is Jamaica inefficient? Yes. Is the National Commercial Bank in its then state inefficient? Yes. It was in conservatorship, run by the government. Can't be efficient. Check tick number 2. Tick number 3, question number 3, is there an abundance of capital chasing it? No. Tick number 3. Let's go. In other words, most people, when they're making a purchase, they look for, in colloquial terms, pretty. I look for ugly.
Love it. Love it. You still needed some courage. Where did you get that courage to make the bold move? Because everyone's running away, you're running in. Or are you so convicted by your principles and your framework that it overrides
That is,
any anxiety?
Jerome, that is exactly it. When you have frameworks that have been well thought through, that is what will give you, that is what will overcome your fear, right?
Wow.
Because of your conviction based on the frameworks that you absolutely believe in. They're absolutes for me. So when you have frameworks, what it does for you, it helps you to minimize the emotional aspects that are definitely going to creep into decision making. But if you have your frameworks and you can make your, you can tick off the boxes, you don't really have to think too much.
very inspiring us to come back to principles and frameworks. Were you dealing with a lot of people that underestimated you? And, in hindsight, NCB has been a roaring success. We were talking about before. You turned it around and see the potential. How satisfying was it for you to go back into Jamaica to contribute to the nation that you come from?
Well, firstly, early in my life, I asked myself the question, Mike, what does fulfillment mean to you? Because I want to make sure I went through my life working towards being a fulfilled person. So I had to know what fulfillment means to me. And I was fortunate that I defined it as the following. Fulfillment means to me, I have to do well, but at the same time, simultaneously do good. Both. So that I never forget it. I codified it into a Latin phrase, which is prosperitas cum caritate, which means prosperity with care. So now, getting back to your question, Mr. Room, Jamaica, the National Commercial Bank, had all the ingredients, the street perception versus reality. It was inefficient and lack of equity. So it had all the ingredients for to do very well. But one now had to go and execute. Okay? So at the signing on March 23rd, 2002, at 2 p.m., my mom was there, my dad was there, my 8 siblings were there. And just before I signed the check to buy the National Commercial Bank, I asked myself the question, wow, I became situationally aware. What's happening here? Holy macros, you're buying the National Commercial Bank of Jamaica? Really? How did that happen? Well, it happened for reasons that I had nothing to do with. That's what's going through my mind. Number one, I was blessed to have been born to this particular lady sitting over there, who had high values, high standards. She led by example. I didn't choose her. I was blessed to have been born to that one, that lady. Secondly, I was blessed to have been born in an era in which I could get educated. I could own a pen. I could aspire. I could work towards my aspirations, and they'll materialize. Had I been born 250 years ago, I would have been owned. I wouldn't have been able to get an education. I didn't choose my era. I was blessed to have been born in this one, in which I'm a good fit for. And thirdly, I was born in a country, Jamaica, that nurtured me to be a confident human being. I didn't choose my country. I was blessed to have been born in that one. So for all those reasons, those are all the reasons why I'm sitting here today. So I made a promise, a commitment then. Mike, well, you can take all these blessings and show them onto yourself. But that you're not going to feel fulfilled doing that. You just become richer. Or you can show some, I'm human, but you're going to use this vessel, NCB, National Commercial Bank, as a vessel to build a better country. So immediately, we changed the mantra, NCB, building a better Jamaica.
Wow.
So that was the thought process. The realization that all of us are here. And with the success we're having, the experiences we're having, it could have been different had our situation been different initially. And we didn't choose the country, the era, the parents. We didn't choose, none of us. So once you realize that, it just gives you a perspective that you can't be selfish. because it's just for the grace of God.
Wow, very powerful. Like the entire story of you going back and still through that process of being situationally aware about the blessings. Like you have an incredible, like I think your mom had such a big impact on the way you actually see adversity, and you almost see them as blessings, which is incredible. I want to talk about the future. You are passionate about nuclear and how to your way of looking at the future, predict, plan, persevere, that whole framework that you have developed. What is it about nuclear and nuclear energy, nuclear medicine that you are seeing as now the future of your, focus?
Well, it's by accident that I got into nuclear, actually. But when I thought about it, it's fate. It's fate. I thought, wow, this whole area has the big potential to solve two of mankind's most challenging problems: cancer and clean air. So how did I get into nuclear? A friend of mine had prostate cancer. And when you have prostate cancer, the escalating protocol of treatments that you go through would include, number one, a prostatectomy, or removal of your prostate. Secondly, if your PSA level is still high, you get radiation. If your PSA level is still high thereafter, it means that the cancer had metastasized throughout your body. They don't know where it is. And then they give you systemic chemotherapy, flood your body with poison. So he had prostate cancer, as I mentioned. He got his prostate removed. PSA level still high. He got radiation. PSA level still high. So now it's his third option, which is chemotherapy / androgen deprivation therapy, which is depriving the body of male hormone. And he said, "I'm not going there." He used more technical language, right? to the oncologist. So he said to the oncologist, "There must be another alternative." The oncologist said, "Well, there's this guy in Germany, Dr. Richard Baum. He's practicing this novel treatment called PRRT, peptide receptor radionuclide therapy. You can go and see him." So when he went over to Bad Berka, Germany, first day, he called me, "Mike, I just landed in Bad Berka, and I met this American guy. He had prostate cancer many years ago, and he was given up. He was on his last leg, and his Johns Hopkins University said, go and see Dr. Baum." He went. Initially, when Dr. Baum staged him, his PSA level was 2,000. Normal is less than 3.
Oh.
The cancer had metastasized to his bones, lungs, and brain. He got 4 infusions of lutetium-177, the radioisotope. When he went back to America, went to Johns Hopkins, they tested him. PSA level went from 2,000 to 0.6.
Wow.
No more cancer in his brain, lungs, nor bone. So I said, his name is Richard. "Richard, when you see Dr. Baum tomorrow, ask him 2 questions. The first is, will he allow me to start an offshoot clinic of his in Jamaica? Because this treatment then was not available in North America. And some men are dying. Prostate cancer is at an epidemic level. So I'll start a clinic and treat them in Jamaica." Second question is, ask him whether or not this treatment is applicable to colon cancer, because my mom has colon cancer. So he called me the next day and said, Dr. Baum said, this was April of 2018. Dr. Baum said he's coming to a conference in Philadelphia in June. Sorry, this was June of 2018. So I said, okay, I'll meet him. So I went to meet Dr. Baum, talked to him, introduced me to a colleague who supplies him with lutetium 177, Oliver Buck. So we got talking, and Oliver said, next time you come to Germany, come and see me. I said, we're coming in 2 weeks. So we went to Berlin, we went to Munich, went to see him, and became a shareholder of this company called ITM out of Munich. And I'm a director now since 2019. So that got me into the space. Then I met CNL, the Canadian Nuclear Laboratory, because they're also developing actinium-225, which is another radioisotope. So we met CNL. I got introduced to CNL, and through CNL, I got introduced to small modular reactors, right? Which is the way that clean air through the production of clean energy,
Right.
or decarbonized air, right, will be produced over time. They have to go to nuclear because the energy mix of every country is a function of what we call the hub and spoke model. Hub and spoke. At the hub, you have fossil fuels providing base load. Fossil fuels, they have some qualities that are admirable, positive.
Right.
Number one, they are always on. Number two, highly scalable. Number three, high energy dense. But dirty. These spokes, they're renewables, not always on, not highly scalable, and not energy dense, but clean. Today, optimality is a combination of both. The Paris Accord in 2015, or COP20, most countries in the world signed up to be carbon net zero by 2050. But to get to carbon net zero by 2050, we have to change the basic energy mix of the world, of every country. So the energy mix of the future will be same model, hub and spokes. At the hub, you have a source that is always on, high energy dense and highly scalable, but clean. The only such source is nuclear fission. So we predicted early that nuclear fission was going to be necessary to get to carbon net zero by 2050. And since most countries in the world signed up to be carbon net zero, they all have to get the nuclear muscle. So I need to make sure that I develop an ecosystem that I can go to countries and help them to become carbon net zero by 2050.
Wow. Very strategic, and I can see your framework at play.
That was PPP.
Yes.
PPP,
Yeah.
predict, plan, and persevere. Yes.
And looking out into the 2050 horizon makes so much sense given all the challenges we have with cancer and energy efficiency. So we will be watching closely. In the last few minutes of the podcast, we are going to have another session where we're going to unpack a lot of these. We want to also talk about your upcoming book that's coming out, The Way of Wealth. I'm so excited to read this, to really get a lot of the wisdom that is so much needed for this generation from you. And thank you for everything you do and giving up your time and the way you talk about your life lessons, your humility. It's such a blessing to our audience, to me. In the last few minutes, what do you think about legacy? What matters most to you at this season of your life?
Albert Einstein said, the eighth wonder of the world is compounding. And so compounding requires reinvesting, keep doing the same thing over and over. The compound curve looks like this. It's a hockey stick curves, right? what's important to me. I'd like to be known as someone 50 years from now, 100 years from now, 200 years from now, as someone who did well by doing good. Starting with my first concentric circle of influence, which is my family. So the principles that I have lived by, I have to I want to make sure that they are infused with those principles. Then their children will infuse with it, their children, so we can get the compounding throughout the generations. Because usually by the second generation, there is dilution. Third generation is gone. In fact, most wealth is gone by the third generation. So I did not want for that to happen to my family. So what I did, Sonia, my wife, codified my principles in a book.
Wow.
And then, but it's just a codification of principle for our children, all of the frameworks. Then we decided okay, this is the basic foundation for a book. Wrap around the frameworks, all the frameworks, and most of the frameworks, because more are still being discovered, around the story of my life. So it's an intermingle between the story of my life and also frameworks. So it's a story, but at the same time, it's educational and it's entertaining.
Amazing. We are excited to be looking forward to seeing that and helping to get the word out, because that is going to have lots of ripple effects to the next generation. I will make sure my kids read it and their kids read it. It's a generational contribution for you. Michael Leachin, what an honor. This is undoubtedly one of the most impactful podcasts we've done. And I want to thank you for sharing your life story, your wisdom, and your frameworks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. It's amazing, man. We could have done this for hours. Wow. Incredible. Thank you.
My pleasure.